One of my favorite panels in Camera Raw has to be the HSL/grayscale panel. Now HSL stands for hue, saturation and luminance. If we go up to our panel options up the top here, you'll notice that it's fourth in from the left. If we click on it, you'll see that you have three different tabs available to you. You have hue, saturation and luminance. Now these panels essentially allow you to make adjustments to specific color ranges. So you can potentially boost levels of one color relative to others and increase or decrease the saturation and luminance of different hues. Now, hue tab itself allows you to change colors within a specific, within a limited color range. So for instance, you can't change blue to red, but you can change blue to sort of a cyan or to a purple, as you can see there. So it sort of allows you to change a specific color or hue to colors that sit either side of it in the color spectrum, whereas red would sit on the complete other end of the spectrum, so that's why it's not actually relative or just wouldn't be right to be able to change that to that particular color. So with that in mind, you can make fine adjustments to all the different colors in your images, which is really quite useful, especially so for example in this image I find that I'd like to make my red sort of more orange. You could go in this direction, or you can go and actually make it sort of more magenta-y pinky. So it does give you the ultimate control over your colors. Now saturation allows you to adjust the vividness of a color. So you could take a low subdued color and make it more intense, or you could reduce the intensity of colors that just look unnatural. So in this particular example I say, well, the red may be too vivid for me, so I'd like to reduce the saturation of the red, and you can see that it ends up looking quite washed out. So you need to be quite careful of the amount that you dial into these types of sliders, because in some cases you may want to just make slight adjustments as opposed to huge adjustments, which can look obvious and unnatural. So I tend to stick around a range of, say, never go over 50, and usually stick around half that, about 25. So minus 25 plus 25, either way. It just depends on your image and what you're actually trying to achieve. Now from saturation we also have the luminance tab. Now this allows you to adjust the brightness of a color itself, which essentially allows you to adjust the density. So what you can do is, once again, if we wanted to adjust the red, we could actually darken the red off, which actually makes it look quite vivid just by darkening it off. It really does make it look more intense. Or you can lighten off a color. If I didn't want the sky to be so dark, I could lighten it off, and as you can see it's starting to clip there. So it does give you the ultimate control, and it sort of reminds me very similar to the selective color settings in Photoshop. It does give you, although you actually have saturation in this where you don't in the other one, so it does give you that extra control that just wasn't originally in, say for example, the selective color in Photoshop. Now you have the option when making your adjustments to use all three tabs, so you could actually go through and walk through each if you wanted to. So you could make slight adjustments to the hues first to get them the exact sort of color that you're after. Then you can go in and make an adjustment to the hue itself, saturation, sorry, and actually boost that. And then you could go in and make a slight adjustment to the luminance or brightness of that particular color. So you could use it like that, where you're actually using all three at once just to adjust one particular color, just to get it right. Or in other cases you may only need to adjust on one tab and one particular slider to end up with the desired results that you're actually trying to achieve. So it does give you a creative potential that is sort of nearly unlimited. You can almost do anything that you wanted to your images with this particular panel, and that's why I find it so fascinating and so useful when I'm adjusting my photographs. So it is worth spending time experimenting with the sliders and sort of getting to know or coming to terms with just how color is affected by adding and subtracting different hues to a particular color, and also how color is affected by the intensity and also the brightness of a color. So by adding more density to a color, it tends to pop a bit more than if you were to lighten the color off, which tends to make it look less intense. So you have a lot of different options available to you, as well as converting to grayscale, which you have up the top here. So if you were to convert to grayscale, once again you have those 8 hue sliders that you can adjust. Now when you convert to grayscale, it gives you the option of, say if you were shooting with black and white film, where you could actually use colored filters to get different results and different densities of different tones in your black and white photographs. So for example, if you were shooting on a bright sunny blue sky day, you could often use a red filter on your camera to create a very dark blue sky, a very dark black sky I should say, in your actual black and white photograph. So the red filter would actually make the blue in the sky a lot darker than it normally would be. So you can do a similar effect here, where you actually want to take the blues and make them a lot darker if you were to do that. So it does give you the options of actually creating different black and white visual effects, but just remember that because you're adjusting one single sort of color area in your photograph, that you can tend to end up with a lot more noise in your images, as you can see here. So just by darkening that off, it's really emphasized the noise in my image that I couldn't essentially see in the sky previously. So it's just something to pay attention to, especially if you do darken things off to values that are quite extreme. But as I said before, I recommend that you stick with under 50, closer to 25. But it just depends on your personal preference and what you're trying to achieve. So that is the hue, saturation, and luminance / grayscale panel.